Want to find out how to test paint colors? Find out how, coming up next. What's going on, guys? Kendall here for Renos for Pros and Joes, helping you simplify the renovation and remodeling process. On this channel, we do hands-on product tool and gear reviews, as well as renovation tip and strategy videos like this one. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Today, I'm going to give 9 tips on how to test paint colors. So the first tip I want to give is to start out by looking online. This is the best resource that you have without having to spend any money. And I'd recommend looking at places like Pinterest, as well as a lot of the blogs that you'll be able to find easily through going through Pinterest. I also want to recommend that you be cautious when you're looking at different colors that people are showcasing on their websites and on their Pinterest boards and things like that, and just across the internet in general. You want to make sure that the colors that you're looking at are being shown in their true setting. What I mean by that is frequently the pictures that you're going to find online are going to be professionally taken with professional cameras by professional photographers and then edited in software. And so what you end up seeing online may not be a true depiction of what is actually there in that particular home or building or room or setting that you're eyeing. Okay, so the next thing that I want to also recommend, which also builds on that same point, is to make sure that when you are looking at these different colors, to make sure that you're looking at as many pictures as you can find online. So what I mean by that is, don't find one picture where you think the color looks spectacular and then just settle on that. You want to be able to try to see that color in as many different scenarios as possible. So if you can see the professional pictures, if that's what comes up initially, hey, that's fine. But you also want to be able to try and at least find some pictures where a non-professional has taken the picture on their cell phone or even with their own camera or digital SLR or something like that, where they have taken the picture and just posted it up. And frequently you can tell because the pictures and the shots are not going to be as well framed and the lighting is not going to be as good. But you want to basically have a good idea of how this is going to look in more than one or less than ideal setting. So the next thing I want to recommend is buy samples. And I know this is going to be a sticking point for a lot of people because the sample containers are relatively expensive compared to the amount of paint that you're getting, but they can be a huge time saver and a lifesaver in the long run. Before you start buying paint samples, I recommend that you focus online and try to find as many colors that you think you may want to consider, and then begin to narrow them down online into a list of finalists. So then the next thing pertains to your areas that you're going to test your paint colors out on. So if you're in a situation where you're able to test your paint colors on the wall, this is going to be the most ideal scenario. You want to make sure that you paint a large enough area for you to be able to get a true idea of what that color is going to look like. And so what I mean is, don't go on the wall and paint a little 2x2 area and then try to, step 10 feet back and see if you like it or not. That's probably not going to be sufficient for what we're trying to do. Now, obviously that's an exaggeration, but you get my point. You want to be able to put enough paint on the wall where you can get a true feel for how that color is going to react within the space that you're going to be painting it. Which brings me to the next point, which is to, when you're painting it on the wall, make sure if you're using the same paint in more than one room, or you're using the color in a very large room that has different types of light in it, make sure that you try that sample out in more than one area to make sure that it's going to react the way that you want it to or the way that you expect it to. The next recommendation is to test all of your colors. And by that I mean most people are going to test their wall colors, but frequently they may skip the trim color. You want to test the trim color, and you want to test the trim and wall color side by side like they will be once the project is complete, because this is the way that you're going to get a true understanding and feel for whether or not those colors actually work together or not. The next thing that I want to recommend is that when you do paint your swatches on the wall, to make sure that you put on at least 2 coats. Don't cut corners on this, because if you only paint on one color, frequently when you're painting, the first coat is a light coat and it's not going to give you complete saturation so that you can get a true feel for what that color is going to look like. So at least 2 coats is going to give you a better idea of what the true color is going to look like, so that you can base your decision on that. The next thing I want to recommend is that one of the colors does not jump out at you right off the bat. as being the one that you want to select, or you're able to get it down to a final 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, or you're going back and forth with whoever the other decision maker is on that, if there is another decision maker, I recommend that you sleep on it and then come back the next day and look at it again to see if you feel the same way. Frequently, this will help you make your decision. And the other thing this allows you to do is it allows you to see that color in different light. So if you're painting something in the evening, say, and it's getting dark and you're lighting up your space with artificial light, the color's going to look one way. But in the morning, when you come back in, if you don't have your lights on, the room is going to look different. When you turn your lights on during the day, and the combination of the artificial fluorescent lighting with the natural light from outside can affect it the way that the color looks as well. So if you wait more time, you get to see the colors in more scenarios, more lighting scenarios. The next thing that I want to suggest is test the colors on something. And this particularly pertains to scenarios where you're not able to test your colors on a wall, where it's not practical, or if you're painting something that does not lend itself to being able to paint a section of it. For example, I did a project where I painted a bookshelf recently, and it was not practical to try and put paint on the bookshelf to see how those different colors would look, because it would affect the finish and things like that. So these samples that you see around me are actually swatches that we used to hold up as a representation of what those colors would look like and try to work from there. And that helped out a lot. And you can see the size of each one of these swatches. They're pretty decent size. And even just moving this in the camera, you can see that it looks quite a bit different there when I just move it around in full light there. So we've got a few different colors here. The next tip is good for once you have made a final selection on colors and the paint is actually being applied to the surfaces. And this is a tip for pros as well as DIYers, homeowners, etc. If you begin to put the paint on the wall or on the ceilings or on the trim, and you immediately get a funny feeling that the colors don't look right, I'd recommend, depending on where you are with the process, to at least make sure that you're able to get enough paint on the wall to get a true idea of what color direction that it's going in, and then I would say stop. If you're not the person who's going to be making the final decision, definitely stop and take photos, or have the decision maker come in and take a look at the space to make 100% sure that they want to proceed forward. This can be a huge time saver. I know it can be a huge inconvenience as well, but it can be very frustrating for you to move forward and complete a paint project only to have the person that you're doing it for decide that they do not like the color that they selected initially, and frequently that will result in a repaint or something like that. So even if you're getting paid to do the job twice, it still can kind of be a letdown, because you've got to still stay there and paint everything again that you just painted. So that's another small tip for you guys. All right guys, it started raining on me. I wanted to give you one last tip. When you put your paint samples on the wall, do not use tape to create borders or lines of demarcation. You'll regret it, because the tape is going to create a ridge along the edge, and when you remove it and actually get ready to do your paint color, that line will still be there and you'll have to address it. You'll have to sand it down in order to make it smooth again like it was before. So putting the paint on the wall is fine. Just make sure that you paint it on a smooth surface. Don't create borders around it. And when you go to paint it for the final colors, you shouldn't have any problems with covering it. Hopefully you guys found this video informative. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.